Good morning. I'm Astrid from Rosen, art historian, scenography scholar, and a former dancer. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. I am in the studio in Gothenburg together with technician Per Nordlund. And today I will talk about colored costume ecologies, black dances, white bodies, and Swedish settings. And my aim with this is to explore in what ways attention to costume can contribute to enhancing the legacy of black dance artist Claude Marchand and his Swedish dance company, Marchand Dance Theatre. And throughout the exploration, I have combined, on the one hand, archival research with decoy-stand methodologies to collab with the local dance community here in Gothenburg. And in particular, Marchand's partner in life, white dance artist Bo Westerholm, has generously contributed to the exploration. And for this, I'm very grateful. And I would also like to briefly mention that this presentation forms part of the major research project Expansion and Diversity. And this is a project that explores hidden histories of independent performing art groups here in Gothenburg. So, who then was this Claude Marchand? According to the passport, he was born 1919 in Charleston, South Carolina, as Claude Merchant Brown. He was raised and went to school in Mount Vernon, New York. And even if his father did not approve, he found his way into dancing. And in 1939, he joined anthropologist, dancer and choreographer Katherine Dunham's dance group. And it was Dunham who changed his name to Claude Marchand. See the photo to the left? There we can see him starring with Dunham in Tropical Revue. And the costumes here, they were made by her white husband, John Pratt. And moreover, Marchand performed in films such as Stormy Weather. And he also starred in many Broadway shows, and one of them was famously Showboat. He would also take on any dance job to earn enough to start his own dance group. He would take on dance jobs, but he would also study as well as teach African-derived dances and music, as well as modern dance techniques and dance theatre. So it's kind of a very broad experience he has. And importantly, Marchand was also a civil rights activist, fighting for the rights of black people in a very racist and, I'm sorry to say so, segregated America. And during the latter half of the 1940s, Marchand succeeded in becoming an independent choreographer, and when possible, he worked with his own constellation of dancers. And you see him here, self-fashioning as an African-American dancer with the drum as a key component. And of course, naked skin is also costume. Marchand left America 1950 to tour to Europe, the Middle East and South America with his own dance company. And eventually he settled down in Italy, where he choreographed for film, but would also sing, act and teach dance in various contexts. And in 1967, he was recruited by choreographer, pedagogue and artistic director Leah Schubert to come to Sweden as one of several black dance teachers. And Marchand helped starting up the Ballet Academy in Gothenburg, and he became its principal teacher. His presence, profound dance knowledge, and the new dance company he formed made it possible for a new generation of young dancers to get a professional dance education outside the institutional ballet school. And I find the picture here of Marchand and his students intriguing in terms of costume in the studio, as well as for promotion and outreach. So components of this picture has been used over and over. And I think this opens up for a discussion about costume ecologies. So theoretically, I understand costume not only as an active agent of performance and performance production, but also as an important agent in society. Costume ecologies, then, are felt relational interdependencies of material circumstances within and beyond the theatre. And this is a brief example of how I try to apply costume ecologies. So during the 1940s, again in a racist and very segregated America, politically engaged black artists would support each other. Marchand collaborated with Afro-Caribbean artist Art Smith. So Marchand would wear Smith's body jewellery in performance as well as on photographs. And this jewellery consisted of spectacular pieces worn on wrists, neck and chest. Thus, jewellery and costume more broadly were not only exquisite performance methods, but also components in black artists' fight for equal rights and social justice. And this sort of politically charged and engaged aesthetics involving body jewellery, you can see it echoed here in a 1950 performance in Italy, as well as on a poster from the 1970s Gothenburg. So you can see Marchand on this poster performing precise, very skilled movement in fashionable trousers and body jewellery. And I suggest then that thinking through costume ecologies helps accessing these complex resonances across time, place and culture. So moving on into the history and legacy of Marchand dance theatre, carnival dances were on the repertoire of this company for over 20 years. And I'm particularly interested in process, who made the costumes for the group and how were they made. And to the left, we see Marchand's young dancers perform an African Brazilian derived ritual symbolizing, as the program states, the transition from boy to man. And the other two pictures show examples of do-it-yourself carnival costume. So while the budget for costumes would be small or non-existing, a lot of work was dedicated to costume production. And quite in line with John Pratt's practices, Marchand would, when possible, buy large amount of cheap fabric. He would often design the costumes himself, and a dressmaker from a local theatre would assist him in making them. Parents were involved and instructed to sew details such as ruffles and ribbons onto costumes, and the young dancers helped out as much as they could. And I think what these young people learned here through these procedures was that nothing is impossible and that almost anything could be used for costumes and set design. So African-derived gospel and spirituals are an important part of black music and dance heritage. It was also a hugely important and popular part of Marchand dance theatre's repertoire. The group performed in central city Gothenburg, at jazz festivals in the archipelago, in the capital Stockholm, and on TV. White unitards and graphic black details were basic costume components, making the group look unison. The skirts were made of circular layers of fabric in colours such as red or orange. And when danced in, these skirts would sway and have an agency of their own. As the choreographies were changed or created anew, the skirts would be recycled and modified, forming part of a circular economy that helped sustaining the company in financially difficult times. The people repeatedly involved in those costume processes became, I suggest, almost like a big supportive family. So, attention to detail. I suggest that these pictures are helpful for perceiving how, for example, ribbons, belts, and so forth in various ways contribute to the overall effects and affects of the performance. And in the picture to the right, pink ribbons as well as headbands create spectacular effects. When the dancers move, the ribbons will follow and counteract the movement and help extending the body and the rhythms of the dance in fascinating ways. The ribbons and the shades of pink in the unitards and the carefully dyed boots resonates with the set design. Well, you can see it here, kind of a waterfall of large-scale pink ribbons. The unitards also signify the latest dance fashion and make the dancers show off their skill and beauty. The unitards were sponsored by a local shop for dancewear. Thus, they also materialise a strong connection with the broader dance community. And interestingly, Marchand's creative use of ribbons is also an homage to John Pratt and the costume techniques employed by him. Pratt used to add, for example, ribbons to finalise costumes, and those would be Catherine Dunham's costumes, and make them into something very special. Looking at the black and white pictures here, the addition of simple rosettes help creating an ensemble effect for the female cakewalk dancers. The striped trousers, and of course we have to imagine them in colour, are equally effective for crafting a vivid wholeness for the male dancers. In the photo, from the spiritual, simple addition of black graphic detail is very effective and congenial with movement. And I actually know it's black from interviews. When moving with the bodies, the costume detail will craft a rhythm of their own, strongly contributing to the effects and affects of performance. The stunning picture to the left shows Bo Westerholm, Marchand's partner in life, in African dances. Westerholm jumps as high as Marchand did in his athletic and rhythmic dances from the 1940s and 50s. The body jewellery, the naked skin as costume, as well as the trousers made for dancing, move across borders and resonate with the African dance diaspora in many periods of time, geographies and cultural settings. I also believe that after 20 years of studying for Marchand, Westerholm could respectfully perform this piece of complex dance heritage. And I believe that activating archival traces in the present not only helps us better understand Marchand and his dance theatre, but I think it also crafts a strong connection to Marchand's profound knowledge about and experience of African-derived dance. And turning to the remaining pictures, dance theatre was another important component of Marchand dance theatre's repertoire. And here we see Bo Westerholm again, and he's starring together with dancer Pia Törngren in a dance adaptation of Federico Garcia Lorca's Yerma. When the piece was first created in 1971, the dancers performed in plain white unitards, but eventually was added a pattern, and you can see it here on the chest, on the costume, a pattern of earth and water, signifying earth and water. And I think this is congenial with the elements that the childless character Yerma is missing and longing for. The smaller photo featured the costume bodies as a symbol to promote the company on a tour to Houston, USA, and this was in 1990. And as we can see, when these images of costume bodies are juxtaposed, Marchand and his dancers persisted in working with a broad repertoire, mobilizing both African-derived dances and Western ones, building on dance theatre. And then, to conclude and say something about my findings as well as the futures of this research, I do suggest that in this exploration, costume comes through as a vital component of a do-it-yourself culture and also a strong component of dance community building. Costume also forms part of, I think, an ecology of lasting passion, exchange and learning. Calls attention to costume also facilitates the exploration of the connection to African-derived dance heritage and its costume makers. And as I would also like to say something about the ways in which attention to costume, in this particular example, I think it manages to counter the exclusionary mechanisms and the downplaying of this of Club Marchand and Marchand Dance Theatre in Swedish performing arts history. So the company has been downplayed as amateur. Marchand's efforts as a pedagogue has not been acknowledged, and it has been sort of came in the shadow of more narrow promotions of postmodern dance. So I think also looking into notions of the amateur that will acknowledge dedicated work, skill, and professional efforts are hugely important, and also all the work conducted in the studio. I think these are new ways, and they will open for a better understanding of Marchand and his legacy. And on the pictures here, you can see that the work is still ongoing. So we do create seminars, workshop seminars, where people from the community will come in and demonstrate dances, etc. And that's all for today. I thank you very much for listening, and goodbye. Stay safe.